Hey everybody, it's Joel from the Boardgame Mechanics. I've been gone for a while, and so you may have noticed that, you may not have, I don't know. But I'm back. It was just a short hiatus because sometimes when you get home from a long day at work, you go to your video editing computer and it's beeping at you, and you go, what's happened? And then you start it up and it won't start. And you've lost everything. You've lost all your video editing software. You've lost everything, all your assets. So I did have a few things backed up. I did have some backup software that I could go download. But things are going to be a little different on the channel now because I lost all my settings and stuff like that. So I think this way that I'm doing this, I've learned some stuff. I think it'll be okay. Enough about that. TMG has been really good to us. That is the Boardgame Mechanics. They let us do some previews for Essen. So if you haven't looked at Dawn of Mankind from me or Aristocracy from Jason, or there's going to be an expansion for Guilds of London that we're taking a look at here in the next week or so, check those all out. TMG has been really cool to us, and we've really enjoyed working with them. So TMG, thank you for the opportunity to do this. There was a promotional consideration for all those videos in the form of review copies. So I don't think that's tainted my view, because they've been pretty cool about saying be honest with reviews and do it's you. So that said, let's take a look at Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. So this is Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done, which from this point on in this video will just be called Crusaders. So here's the player board. This is a great place to start looking at setup because it's really the central part of this game, in my opinion. The main board does do a lot of stuff, but really you're going to be focusing a lot on what's going on this board throughout the game. I think the most central thing too, even on this player board, are these action wedges. Everyone has the same 6 action wedges. Now sometimes there's going to be a variable setup based on there being some different game modes that you can play, but the standard game, we're going to randomly place these wedges with the 1 symbol side up. Now there's a 2 symbol side too, and as we play the game, we can upgrade the tokens, or the wedges, but for now we're going to have the 1 side up to begin the game. Then we're also going to put 2 of these little yellow like hexes that are going to kind of try and match or kind of track our actions. And so really I thought this was going to be a nightmare to keep these wedges all in place, but really they stay in place pretty well. And the cardboard in this game, worth mentioning right now, is just monstrously thick. So some of the thickest cardboard I've seen in a game in 2019. So in the era of cheap cardboard, this one has really exorbitant and awesome cardboard. So components, man, they already, I'm going to mention, are really good. So we have these action wedges here. They're central to the game. We'll talk about them in a second. We also have these wooden buildings. There's basically 4 types of wooden buildings here. We have banks, barns, churches, and castles. And they basically do what we see in a lot of other games here. They're covering up symbols. And as we pull these off, kind of like we do in Tapestry, kind of like we do in like maybe Clans of Caledonia, we're going to see that the symbol they expose is going to be available to us now. So as we develop, we're saying that this barn that I developed is going to help me with my mustering action and give me more power there. So we cover all those up to start the game though. Those are going to go out later. We also have these tiles up here that can be flipped over when we do muster to show that we have more troops to us, we have more power available to us, and then there's a lot of costs associated. So this hex cost is really showing how much of that action we need. One last piece on this player board I want to touch base on are these knight tokens. So we put 2 of them on the player board to start with. They kind of are buddied up with these castles. When those castles go on the board, we kind of put those knights on the board as well. And speaking of the board, let's get there now. This is the 2-player side of the board. So the 2-player side of the board is noted on the top of the board where it shows it's 2 players. We also see this here. This means there's 140 total influence tokens in this game. So when the influence tokens are exhausted, we're done. We're done playing the game, and we figure out who the winner is. On the board here, some just things to note that are going to be happening here is we do have the 2-sided board. This is the 2-sided player, 2-player side. The other side is then clearly the 3 and 4-side player board. So we do have to do a setup on this game. There are these little tokens here. There are basically 3 factions, and off the top of my head, I don't remember the name of them. And you know what I'll do? I'll put them on the screen, like right here. We're going to have those pop up on the screen. So this should be here. So there's 3 different factions. Like I want to say like the Saxons, and I don't remember. I'm not even going to pretend like I know. So the faction tokens go out. And it really just matters that there's different factions, and they operate differently. So this gray faction is on that track up to the top there where it's starting at a 3. This brown is on that track right there. And then these with the kind of like different icons on them are like the third faction. And they have more of a like less variable strength throughout the game. They are more like set with their power. So at the beginning of the game, they're pretty difficult to get. But if there's any left towards the end, they're kind of easy. So they also give us a benefit. So like, for example, this one right here would say if I conquered those people, if I crusaded against them, I would get to put a castle in that hex. So the setup of this game, though, we're going to randomize those. We're going to randomize these different like region tiles, which basically, they look complicated, but they basically just show us that there's a benefit or a discount for doing certain things in each hex. So that's roughly how you set up this board. Last thing we're going to do is there's a little knight icon, and you're going to put your knight in the hex with the knight icons. Okay, so let's get to the game. This game is like Mancala on a Rondel. And I thought of that before I even read the directions where the designer said he was inspired by that idea. Because what it is exactly that. We have a Rondel here, randomly set up, that we're going around this, doing different actions. But then also we follow this kind of Mancala type thing to do these actions. So, for example, I can do any of these actions right now because they're all present with action tiles on them, or action markers on them. So, every tile is able to be used. We have travel, muster, another travel, build, crusade, and influence. And they all do very distinctly different things, but they're all very valuable and we need to do them throughout the game. So let's just say I wanted to travel. I would look at this travel tile here. It has the travel icon on there. And traveling is just what you'd think it'd be. It'd be moving into other hexes with your knights on the board. So I have 2 of these on there. I don't have anything uncovered on my board over here. I have no bonuses to my travel. So I would be able to do a travel action of a 2 power. So I would do my travel action of a 2 power. I'd move my knight up here on the board. Then after I do my travel action, I'm going to take these 2 pieces here, and you can see this little like clockwise spiral thing with the hex in there. That's to remind me that now I have to do this Mancala thing where I drop one of these in each spot. So what that's done for me now is made my muster action and my other travel action better. So I'm going to have 3 power whenever I take that action. But at the same time, I don't have this travel available to me now. So I'm going to continue doing this. So let's say I wanted to do an influence action, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense in this part of the game. But let's say just for the sake of this, I want to, because I want to just show that I would do this. 1, 2. So now my muster has 4 power on it. So it might be a good move for me to do just to make it more powerful there. So that's my first choice, is take an action and then Mancala the pieces around. There are some of the factions here, which I have not touched on at all, player powers, that allow you to go clockwise or counterclockwise. This particular one that I have in this player's board setup would let me do that. So I could possibly go backwards with this person because of his player power, but not typical. The other thing you can do if you don't want to do that is you can basically pass your turn, rearrange all of the little hexes on one of the tiles. So let's say I really don't need to do a muster action, but let's say that I really have planned poorly and I've done something like crazy like this, and I really need to travel. So I could say I'm going to take all of these off of the muster, which is possible if I really avoided mustering most of this game, and I would Mancala those. But then also, instead of taking an action, by foregoing an action, I could say I'm going to go ahead and flip this tile over then. And when I flip that tile over, now I have a choice on that. So now maybe, let's say my strategy is I don't really care to muster. Now I have a secondary action that I could do with the bits that are on that spot. So another kind of neat little action. There's actually a third action too, where if you get all these upgraded and you just need to distribute these yellow bits, you can forego your turn and just redistribute your bits without taking an action. All right, let's take a look at all the different options that we have here. First off, we do travel. So if I did this, I'd pull 2 travel off, do the Mancala thing to it, and then I'd travel at a 2 power because I pulled 2 off. So real simply, moving from here to here cost me 1 because there's nothing present there. But since there is this clan's there, this faction's there, moving from here till there would cost me 2 because I'm leaving there for 1 plus moving into a place that's occupied. So I have to pay an additional. So paying 2 to go there would be another option I would have on traveling. Over the course of the game, our travel is going to get much more powerful, but we're also going to have many knights out there. So we have to divide that movement up and make sure that we use it the best we can. When I crusade, I'm going to need quite a bit of power. So this would be an upgraded tile, obviously, because it has 2. But then I would crusade with a 4 power. I would remember I have 4 power. But I need a lot of power when I crusade because I'm going against an enemy who starts with at least 3 power. My knight's in a tile with an occupying force. I would have to pay crusade power in excess of their power in order to remove them. then I'm basically able to claim this one for me. And later on, I could build in this spot because it's not occupied anymore. Whenever I do that, I need to look at the power there, present on their track. So I would have to have 3 power to remove them. But then after I've defeated them, they move up 1 in power. Because I guess thematically they're, I don't know, building better defenses because they've been attacked. I don't know what you want to say there, but you just move them up 1 power. Now that means I'm going to have to continue getting more and more powerful. And in order to do that, I do my next action. The next action I might do is a muster action. So this would be a 3 power muster action, do the Mancala mechanism, and I would have 3 power on mustering. So when I muster, it's actually really simple. When I muster, I look at my row of troops here. I look at the value of the lowest priced one. If I had at least that in my muster action, I can flip this guy over. And when I muster, he then exposes a crusade symbol for me. So now I can crusade a little better than I was able to before. All right, so building is another action available to me. Once I've cleared out some spaces and I have places to build, I would like to build. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my player power and go backwards with this one. That was my player power. It allows me to go backwards as indicated on my tile. When I build, I'm going to go ahead and take an unoccupied space where I have a square available to me. There's no building there present already. And I'm going to look at my buildings over here. So there's the 4 types of buildings we talked about earlier. They also all have levels and then prices underneath them. So the price of this one's going to be 3 influence. I had 3 influence. So I'm going to go ahead and pay that in order to build my building right there. Sometimes a tile will have like a little bonus there that says if you build something, you'll get more influence. Or if you build there, you will have a discount. So this one would discount a barn and it would reward a bank. Also, now that I remove that building, I've exposed an influence symbol there. So the church increases my influence, primarily. So when I take the influence symbol, this exposed symbol right here is always available to me. So now I've permanently increased my influence, much like how I permanently increased my ability to crusade by getting more troops. And I'm just better at that action now. So speaking of influence, let's do it. When we influence, you really don't have to overthink it. You count the number of hexes present, Mancala them out, and then take influence tokens equal to what's there. So I've got six influence hex there. I'd Mancala those out, and I'd finish off by getting 6 influence tokens. So the game's going to continue. We're going to keep putting things out. We're going to keep gathering more influence. We're going to keep doing better at our particular actions by building castles, by building all kinds of buildings out there. By unlocking more knights, we're going to do better at our spread of buildings and things throughout the land. And we're going to keep playing until we reach our influence value marked on the side of the board there. With 2 players, it's 140. It goes up by 60 with each player. So 200 and 260 for 3 and 4 players, respectively. Once we hit that end mark, we're going to figure out who made the most influence over the course of the game. So there you have it. It's a snapshot of Crusaders. You may not necessarily know how to play the game now, but I think you've got a good feel for it. And that's enough for me to get back in the studio and give you some final thoughts on this game.
So TMG has done it again, and I am a big fan of TMG games. I mean, if you look over here, you can see that I have a whole mess of them over my shoulder, and then it goes up another whole set yet. And so, Kings of Aaron's Team is one that people probably don't know real well. I may need to review that one. It was the very first video review I did about 7 years ago with my son. Maybe he and I need to re-review that one. But that's not why you're here today. You're here for Crusaders. So let's get right to it. What do I think of Crusaders? Well, here's where things are going to look a little different. We're going to have this big white box pop up, and here's my list. I think this might be good that I have it this way. So what are the good things that I like about this game? What are the pros? Well, I really, really like the overall weight of this game. So this game is a squarely medium or heavier family game. And so with that, you're going to see a lot of accessibility to the table. So I think that this is a game that if someone's played Ticket to Ride and maybe like Royals or something like that, some basic board games that we suggest as board game mechanics as like your entry games, this is going to be like that next tier. So this is going to be something where you're going to introduce some of the ideas of like you take the piece off and it shows you a symbol, that kind of engine building, or like an introduction to a Rondel or map manipulation. So I think that this is a great next steps type game. It's squarely a mid Euro, maybe heavier mid, but it's not overbearingly heavy. It's just a good weight, and it introduces some nice cool mechanics to you, like maybe newer or younger gamers. So I really do like that. It's a nice maybe intro into heavier and thinkier Euros on down the road. So if someone likes this game, it's probably a good indication that they're going to enjoy some even heavier stuff, like maybe Clans of Caledonia or stuff like that. But this one is really good, and it's really streamlined, and it does feel like it has some of that puzzly, heavier Euro stuff in it, in a pretty streamlined, quick package. I like Rondels. I'm not crazy about Rondels. This game does Rondels right. It does it really well. It's not overbearing. It's not creating AP and analysis paralysis, but it's a cool mechanism to have included in this game, and it really adds to the game. It doesn't take away at all. It's just something really cool. The variable setup that is involved with the Rondel is cool too. So overall, I think it's a really great mid-weight thinkier Euro. So it's easy to teach. This game's really easy to teach. I think I could teach it to somebody in about 7-8 minutes probably. And they could be up and running, maybe have a couple questions. But that said, you could play this one 7 or 8 times and learn something new about how to do well in this game, or learn a new way to play this game, or learn something new about it. And so with that, I think this is in that category of like the easy to teach, easy to learn. Takes a bit to master it. So that's always a sign of a good game in my opinion. I think that's a really solid plus for this game. Really good positive thing that's happening in this game. So the other thing too is that there's these player powers in this game. Everyone has their player power, and it really adds to the replayability of this game because those player powers they just make the game feel unique when you play with different characters. So some of the characters allow you to reload your Rondel in an empty spot that you just vacated. Some of them allow you to go, counterclockwise. There's all kinds of crazy stuff on how you like manipulate the game based on your power, and they feel not quite. But if you've played Voyages of Marco Polo, you know that those player powers, those variable characters, they like break the game. This one, I don't think we're breaking the game quite, but at the same time, it feels really unique and different. And it's to the point where when I've played with a character myself, I feel like he's underpowered and everyone else's character is better, even though I know that I played with those characters previously and I felt like they were underpowered when I played them. So that's a good sign they're balanced. It's a good sign that they create envy. So that's pretty cool, I think. So I really do like that. And then all the powers do make it feel like you're playing a slightly, maybe different variation of the game. So you do your strategy from the bottom up based on that player, I think, strategy. So when I'm able to reload that Rondel, I'm not quite so one of the guys, you vacate a wedge and you can put one right back in that wedge that you just took out. So you're never going to have a time where you don't have an action available to you if you don't want to. So it makes it a little bit weird to take an upgrade when you don't have to reallocate something. But at the same time, if you need to do actions on successive turns, you're really able to do that, especially early in the game. That's really powerful. So that builds your strategy from the bottom up, that you aren't as worried about, okay, I got to balance where I'm putting these things in this Rondel. You could really load up one area of the thing because you don't care. So just kind of interesting how all the player powers or character powers work differently and make you look at the game and approach it differently. And I think this is a really positive thing about this game as well. The randomized setup, by that I mean how the Rondel pieces go on the board, and then how we put those little discount kind of markers and then the little faction kind of markers on the map. I think that as well really contributes to the replayability of this game. So there's no min-maxing this game. There's no saying this is the definitive path to victory. So games like Twilight Struggle, if you play them, you have to know like the strategy that you play, or even chess with it's like single setup. There's big books talking about opening moves and things like that. This game, because it's different, the Rondel is set up differently every time. You can't really plan on having an opening move set. So there's not an ability to min-max this game exactly. You got to kind of take the game, what it gives you, see how things unfold. And I'm not brilliant enough. Maybe there are people out there who are brilliant enough to just look at the layout of the board and go, oh, okay, I get what I can do in this to really, utilize what's happening here. It might be true, but I think that you can get a sense of the game, but then really you got to feel it unfold. So I like that as well, that this is going to let basically inexperienced players at least be competitive with more experienced players. Whereas something like, seriously, I'm going to go back to Twilight Struggle. You almost need to play that game with someone who's new when you're new, because you skill up like you're playing tennis with each other or something, So this game allows new players to play alongside of veteran players and be competitive. I mean, I think, and the game's really well balanced. So I think even then, if you don't make totally optimized moves, you're going to stay in the game. So I really like that about it as well. The negatives I have for this game, you ready for these? Nothing. I don't have any real big negatives for this game because I think this game does what it does really well. It's just a positive game for what it is. I think it's the great midweight Euro game with all these variable things and just a nice mesh of mechanics. It's kind of unique too. I don't feel like this really feels like anything. I know this game was inspired by Stefan Feld. It feels a little like a Feld with that Rondel, but not really. It's kind of its own thing, you know? So I really do like it. It might be a stripped down Feld feeling a little bit, but again, not really. It's really kind of its own thing. So I like it quite a bit. I don't have any glaring negatives on it, and I enjoy the game a lot right now. In fact, this might be, probably will be in my top 10 games that I played this year for the first time. I'm not positive this was a 2019 release. I'm thinking this might be a 2018 release, but I really liked it. And it was new to me in 2019, probably my top 10 games I played in 2019. And that was probably 40 games. So more than that, probably 50. So in the top 10. So I really like it. So I'm going to have some good ratings on this, right? Yeah, I am. Let's get right to that right now. So my ratings right off the bat, I'm going to give it the family weight plus for the weight of the game. So I think I talked about this quite a bit already. It's squarely a mid-weight Euro game. It's heavy enough to have some important choices in it, but not going to scare people away. And it's going to be something that's teachable to people who haven't played a million games. So I think this is one of those games that's just going to be a really solid Gateway Plus, Family Plus, mid-weight Euro game. Really good. It's a nice real estate that it occupies where it can hit the table a lot, but be gratifying when it does hit the table. So I love that. That's a really strong point about this game. The theme, nearly everybody's going to be okay with this theme because it's the Crusades and King Arthur kind of stuff, not the Crusades like the terrible stuff that happened in the Crusades is being glorified or even talked about. And actually there's even a note about the Crusades from the designer in this. So I mean, like, he acknowledges that Crusades are a very touchy thing that horrible things happen in. And so with that, just the theme of spreading a message or spreading influence across a continent is really the only thing that thematically is happening in this game. There's no holy war. There's no, I mean, like, just things are playing out in a way that just is a spread across Europe of influence. So, and it follows really those like knights and kind of cool, you know, things that happened to the Crusade era that were cool, not the stuff that was really harsh. So I think nearly everybody is going to be okay with it because it's so stripped down and not trying to be evil. But that said, the Crusades were a rough time and people do still have strong feelings about that. So there might be some people who don't love this game because of the theme. I don't think there's many though. So I give it a nearly all rating in my opinion. The components and the art in this game, I'm giving a 4 out of 5, which is an excellent rating. It's not a knockout. So a knockout is like a deluxeified, makes me gasp when I see how awesome the components are. This game didn't do that to me. But I can't complain about the components in it. There's nothing weak in this game about the components. The cardboard is super thick. All the tiles like lay together. The only complaint I might have, I guess, is I would love it if we would have had a recessed player board where everything kind of snaps in place. Now that said, there is a deluxeified version of this game. There is a available at cons kind of version of this game that I think is above and beyond and over the top from what you saw in this video and what I've been playing with. And that one might have some of the stuff that I wish. But this is the entry-level affordable version. So, and it's perfectly great. Everything in it's really awesome. And if I had to like get picky about it, I would say give us a recessed board to hold all our pieces on, but not necessary. Super thick cardboard, really cool shaped meeples and wood bits in there. Very strong. I can't complain. And it really is like does the job and then some. So really good componentry on this. The fun of this game is super high. I don't know why. I love engine building. Tapestry was a lot of fun for me this year with that pulling things off and getting more income. This one has that same idea that we see in Clans of Caledonia, Terra Mystica, Tapestry now, and then this game where you're pulling these buildings off, putting them onto a map. And as you do that, you expose more symbols, with the idea being the more churches I put out, the more influence I can spread. The more, you know, castles I have, the more knights I'm going to have in my kingdom. So it's thematically working, but at the same time, it's a really cool way to do an engine building kind of thing that my player board's going to have more symbols exposed as I do this expansion. Really cool. So I like that a lot. The Rondel is fun too. You put those together, you get this really cool puzzle that's super gratifying to complete. It's super gratifying to build your engine up. And the fun on this one is just off the scales, like 5 out of 5, because I love solving the puzzle of this game. I love the interaction of the players trying to figure out what they're doing, but then also that engine building thing really, it hits all the right tones for me to make a really nice chord. 5 out of 5. Love this game. Super fun. So the last thing is the replayability of this game. Now, the replayability of this game is a 4.5 out of 5, which is darn near perfect because it has all those things that are variable, where you put out those bits randomly and you put the wedges of the Rondel down variably or randomly. And then you have like your little player power thing that kind of keeps things changed up. So all that stuff, amazing, and really helps to the replayability of this game. However, I will say this. If you play at max player count, please keep it max player count 4 or 5 times. You will have seen the same characters pop out a few times at that point. And you will have felt like, oh, okay, I've seen this before. So it's not perfect with its replayability, but darn near. Because even though you have seen those characters come out, who cares? It's fun still. The game's really fun. The game's great. So I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. And I think that this game will have an expansion. I just think it will. I think it could have a sideboard put on there. It could have more of those little factions put into the game. I think it will have an expansion put into it, and it will definitely be a 5 out of 5. And it's not bad. A 4.5 out of 5 is amazing, okay? So 4.5 out of 5 rating is amazing. It's very good. That'd be a 9 out of 10 on BGG. And most people don't give games 9 out of 10 on BGG. So the replayability is still very strong at a 4.5 out of 5, just not perfect. And I think with an expansion, it will be perfect in its replayability. So this game is really, really good. So 4.5 out of 5 being an awesome rating. I'm going to go back to that right now when I say the final rating on this is a 4.5 out of 5. And it is an excellent game. And this is a very strong statement, okay? This game, to me, is an essential for most bigger collections. Yeah, I said that. So this game, to me, I think is going to be a modern classic. It's going to be something that we played for 10 years plus. And I think it's something that I would put into my collection if I didn't have it already. I mean, like, I just think it's a really rock-solid game. It just feels a neat real estate of a lighter, heavy game, you know? So I just think it's a really good addition to most collections. You guys can see a chunk of my collection, see what kind of games I'm into. It is as good as Yokohama. And like, it kind of occupies that same heaviness almost as Yokohama. So that's another TMG that I really like. And that one I think should be in most collections too. But this one, right there with it. I think this is just going to be a game that we're talking about forever. We're playing it for a long time. And it's very good. And so I just haven't seen this one around as many places. But I think it's excellent. And I think it's something that is worth checking out. So if you get an opportunity to play it, I think you should. And I think that if you are not someone who is hesitant to buy board games, you won't be disappointed with this one. So again, honestly, essential. I'm using the word essential because it's just such a good, like, I guess another way to put it is this. We have all these games that are up here, and then we have these games that are like these gateway games, and it's this thing in the middle here that's kind of bringing us up to these heavier games. And I think that there's not a lot of awesome games that do that, you know? And this one's right in there. It's in that good real estate that's a transitional game to those really heavy games, but it's still super fun to play, and it's really enjoyable. So, Crusaders, overall, I just absolutely love this game. Adore it. 4.5 out of 5. Amazing rating. Definitely board game mechanic accepted. And I should have looked it up, but this game's new to me in 2019. If it's officially a 2019 game, it will definitely be in my top 10 games of 2019 list. If it's not, it'll be unofficially on there because it was new to me. So if you've enjoyed this, we do a podcast. That's maybe our biggest thing. Jason, the other guy that you see in the other videos, he and I do a podcast together. This is just a little bit of what we do here on YouTube. So if you like this, go check out our podcast. I think it's a lot more fun than this even. So you can find that at our website, which is bgmechanics.com, or wherever you find podcasts, look for Board Game Mechanics. And we keep doing these videos, and you guys keep watching, and you keep subscribing, and I thank you for that. So anyway, I've been Joel. This has been the Board Game Mechanics, and keep gaming.